Wonderful. We are grateful to Reverend Holston for hijacking you from your Friday evening.
No, it's quite right.
Thank you. All right.
I believe we're live on Facebook. We're gonna start in a few seconds. Okay, thank you all for joining. It means a lot to me and everyone watching. Hopefully at the end of this, we can open people's eyes to the importance of voting and maximize the voter participation. Sorry, my name is Rabiul Chowdhury. I am a member of Muslim Aid Initiative as well as Engage Pennsylvania. We are honored to have today DA Jack Stollsteimer, Larry Krasner, as well as Councilwoman Christine. With that, I would like to dive straight into our event, introducing first my colleague, my friend Lena, who is hosting this with me, who's a director and trainer at POWER, as well as my brother, Dr. Ahmed Salim, director at CAIR-Philadelphia. Before we begin, just wanted to let everyone know that we are live streaming this on several Facebook pages. Today, we are partnering up with Engage Pennsylvania, Muslim Aid Initiative, CAIR-Philadelphia, POWER, Masjid al-Jamia, and Upper Darby Islamic Center. With that, I would request our panelists today to introduce themselves and share what do you want people to know about this election, starting with Councilwoman Christine.
Hi, my name is Christine Ruther. I'm one of 5 Delaware County Council people. We're a little bit like the City Council in Philadelphia, only we don't have a mayor. We have a chief executive, and we are like Philadelphia in one other way. The Delaware County Council does not run the elections. We fund the elections, and we supply all the resources for the elections, including the people and things like that. But we do not actually make policy decisions about the elections. There's a lot of things that are decided by a bipartisan board, because we do not have a mandatory bipartisan council in Delaware County. So we can all be of one party. And in fact, except for the years 2018 and 2019, it has been one party for a very long time. It was either the Republicans, and now it's the Democrats. So there is a bipartisan election board made up of 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, because now the Democrats are in the majority on council. And they make a lot of the decisions, but I am the liaison on council with our Board of Elections and with our election staff. And I make recommendations to council based on information that we get from them. So what I want you to know about this election is, in Delaware County, everything's new. Everything's new. The system you will see if you go into the polling place to vote, it's new. There's no more big machines. You're going to go check in, and somebody's going to give you a piece of paper, and you're going to actually cast your votes on that piece of paper. Another thing that's new, there's no straight party voting. That's true all over the state. And once you've got to vote for every person that you want to vote for. You can't just say, oh, I want to vote for the Democrats and then vote for the president and think everybody else is going to be voted for. No, you've got to go down through every office to vote for the Democrat if you want to vote straight party. Same if you want to vote for the Republicans. You've got to vote for Trump for president and then keep on going down. And then you take your ballot over and you're going to scan it. And it's like sliding a piece of paper into a copier or a fax machine, and it will record your vote. Another thing that's new, a great many of your friends and neighbors may be voting by mail. If you're voting by mail, we could talk about that. There's still time to request a mail-in ballot. The last day to do it is Tuesday. And there's some things you ought to know about how to vote if you're voting by mail to make sure your vote is counted. and how you can get the ballot back to us. And I'm happy to talk to you about all of that. But I can tell you all of this is really new. And there's great places to go to get information in Delaware County. You can go to our website, delcopa.gov/vote. And there's a tremendous amount of information on all the things we can talk about tonight.
Thank you, Councilwoman Christine. As we do have a lot of questions for you tonight. With that, I'm going to ask Brother Omar, who just joined, if you could please introduce yourself and share what you want people to know about this election.
First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for having me. I'd like to say assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I appreciate all the work that all the organizations that are on this call that you do. Now more than ever, it's important the work that you're doing. Keep doing the work. Again, I'm Commissioner Omar Sabir. I'm one of the Philadelphia City Commissioners. The Philadelphia City Commissioners are a 3-member bipartisan board of elected officials, and we handle the election functions in Philadelphia County, and we also handle voter registration. And again, we have one of the most historic elections that are coming up due to COVID-19. The Act 77 that was signed into law by Governor Tom Wolf. Halloween, it was a bipartisan bill. Very historic, and we're implementing this in a presidential year with the pandemic as well. So it's very interesting. I just want to give you a couple of numbers from Philadelphia County. We have over 1.1 million people registered in Philadelphia County, and that's the most it's been since 1984. And we have over 400,000 citizens who had applied for a vote by mail ballot. We had 200,000 turned in. And with the rate that it's going now, there is a possibility that we will have the highest voter turnout in the history of Philadelphia elections. So this is a great time to be a city commissioner to see these things. And again, I want to let everyone know if you have any questions, please let me know. My email address is omar.sabir@phila.gov, omar.sabir@phila.gov. I know people's questions may be unique. Philadelphia also has 17 satellite locations open 7 days a week, and they're extensions of the County Board of Elections. And you can get a lot of your questions answered. And we're open from 11:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we are open from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Thank you, Brother Sabir. We do have a question. Please hang tight. With that, I'm going to go to my friend Jack. Jack, if you could share what you want people to know, and how can we continue to do great things in DelCo. And
thank you very much. First of all, thank you all for hosting this and for inviting us. Omar, it's very nice to meet you. I don't think we've met before. Christine Ruther is my friend and colleague. She's not sold herself completely tonight because she is the person who is making sure that we all have a safe and fair election in Delaware County. She's been working overtime as a county council person to make sure that our election bureau is fully staffed and ready for November 3rd. Also happy to see my colleague, Larry Krasner, and apparently his cat, who's become a star, I think, of this show already. Larry and I share the same job. Way that we work in the criminal justice system is each of the 67 counties of Pennsylvania has a district attorney who is the chief law enforcement officer. So he represents the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in state criminal prosecutions in the city of Philadelphia. I do the same in Delaware County. And I think Larry's got the much bigger population. We have about 564,000 people who live in Delaware County through 49 different municipalities. We have about 44 different law enforcement agencies. So, you know, we've got a lot of people who need to work collaboratively together on law enforcement issues, which we do, I think, very effectively. but particularly we want to make sure that we're working hard to make sure that this is a safe election, that everybody gets a chance to have their voice heard, no matter what party they're in and who they support, that we have a safe polling place on election day or polling places, and that everybody is respectful, and that we get the vote counted appropriately, and the result is going to be whatever the result is. And I think at this point, we've all heard this before, but this is continuously the most important election of our lifetime. I think it's actually true this year. But I also think that everybody in this country just wants to do the same thing. We're all Americans who want to be able to go to a polling place, have our voices heard, make our vote count, and then live with the consequences. And hopefully that's going to move our country forward. So I'm very happy to be here. And I'll let Mr. Krasner talk. Larry has already done, I think, yeoman's work in making sure that Philadelphia officials and law enforcement community are prepared for Election Day. We've been watching, Larry, some of the things you're doing, some of the things you're doing in Montgomery County that's helped us on the law enforcement side to prepare for Election Day. So thank you for all you're doing, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jack. With that, I'm going to go to District Attorney Larry. First of all, nice to virtually meet you. I don't think we have never met in person before. So when we talk about election, right, we're pretty much talking about Pennsylvania in this election, right? The entire country is looking at us, particularly Philadelphia. So what can you share? What do you want people to know?
So number one, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure and an honor to get a chance to speak to everyone who's signed on here and listening, and howdy to all you old and new friends. Jack and I do have the same job in different places, and that job is to uphold the law. There are not many more important things in a democratic society than elections. And especially when there are threats, no matter how serious they may or may not be, it is absolutely crucial that we make sure that every single vote is counted. I don't care what party you are for. I don't care what candidate you are for. The democracy I want to see is the one where 100% of the voters vote and their voice is heard and it is counted. And we elect the leaders we want. That is what I want to see. So I want people to know that, number one, the news so far is pretty good. And I say that because in Philly, we've had early voting for a number of weeks. And we have also had an election task force. We always have an election task force. But this year, our election task force is bigger than ever. And we have a hotline so that if there are weird things happening, troubling things happening at the early voting locations, then we should be hearing about them. Our hotline number, and feel free to write this down. I'll mention it one more time before I'm done. But our hotline number at the DA's office is 215-686-9641. My kitty's getting restless here. We'd love to hear from you. If you go to any voting location, something bothers you, something concerns you, and I don't just mean on election day, I mean now. We'd love to hear from you. The good news, though, is with weeks of voting, we've only had 3 phone calls. None of them turned out to be that serious. There was some talk about a burglary at a location where there were some voting machines, but it turned out to have nothing to do with any kind of effort to mess up the vote. It was simply someone trying to steal some money. That's all it was. So we are not seeing anything terrible happen yet. We are prepared. We are in close communication with the Philadelphia Police Department so that we can work together. We have provided a memo, and I'm sure Jack already has it, but we have provided a memo to the Philadelphia Police, which explains the unique criminal laws that exist under the election code. It's in a funny place, and they're not used very often. But the police and prosecutors need to be ready in the unlikely event we have a problem. Now, I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, because we should talk about the elephant in the room. And that is that there are some extremists, and it doesn't matter on which side, because that's not the point, who seem so wedded to their ideas about the universe that they are coming up with this notion that they're going to defend polling places, perhaps by showing up with baseball bats or guns or whatever. We haven't seen any of it. We hope we will not see any of it. But they can't do that, okay? Our country protects the right of an individual to have a firearm for their own defense. It does not protect the right of people to imagine they are their own army. You do not get to be a militia just by saying it. any more than I get to be a player in the NBA just by saying it. And trust me, you don't want to see me in the NBA. All right. So rest assured that, Jack, that police and that federal authorities are watching carefully, and that we are going to make sure that we do not have a scenario when people go to the polls, be it early or on time, where they will feel intimidated. They will feel like they're being coerced or pressured in any direction. If you get any of that at all in Philadelphia County, then I want you to call 215-686-9641, and someone from the DA's office will be on it. I want you also to call 911, and we will be on it. That is not going to be tolerated in our democratic society. We are not going to let that happen. I am so excited to hear from Commissioner Sabir that we are seeing that level of registration, that he is hopeful that we may have the biggest voter turnout in history. What an incredible achievement that would be during a pandemic. I mean, think about that. Think about what we're up against and what an amazing thing that would be. So I will stop talking now, but I just want to say again how honored I am to have the chance to be here. I really appreciate it, even though I have another meeting I have to get to at 8. I'm going to hang in as long as I can because I hope to learn from all the other folks who are here.
Thank you, dear Larry. We're honored to have you all today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Lena.
Thanks, Rabiul. Hi, everyone. It's really good to be with you. I'm a trainer and a coach with POWER. And DA Krasner kind of started talking about what I was going to ask about, but I'd love to hear from other folks as well. None of us know what's going to happen on Election Day or after Election Day, but certainly, as Larry talked about, there's reason to have fear around unrest, violence, and particularly targeting of Black and Brown people and communities. So we were hoping to hear a little bit more about how you're preparing for this period that's ahead of us. And I'll open it up. I think, DA Krasner, if there's more you want to say about it, you're welcome. But anyone who wants to comment on that is
I'm going
welcome.
to defer to my colleagues here first. I might have a comment at the end.
Great.
So we're taking the same approach that Larry's taking in Philadelphia. We've already briefed the police chiefs. There's been several meetings, a lot of discussions. The Court of Common Pleas in Delaware County, our president judge, has been working with us to ensure that we have a fully staffed court on Election Day. And we've had some detectives have to go out on a couple of small cases, as Larry's talking about in Philadelphia. We've had a couple of complaints already, and they've not turned out to be anything criminal at this point, but there will be more of these sort of incidents and complaints as we get closer to Election Day, I'm sure. But I do believe, and I can speak, I think, safely for every law enforcement police chief in Delaware County, we all want the same thing, and we're dedicated to getting that happen, a safe Election Day. We want to get through this Election Day without anybody being intimidated, without anybody being scared away from voting, and for everybody to have the opportunity to exercise their constitutional rights. And I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to be able to do that. We will have district attorneys. We will be fully staffed. Our task force will be up and running on Election Day as well. The courts will be staffed. I think Christine can talk about the election board, but they are the hub in Delaware County for a lot of these complaints, and they'll be passing them along both to us and to law enforcement in general. But we are ready. Christine, if you want to jump in here too, I think the Park Police and the Sheriff's Office, everybody in law enforcement has already been talking through these issues and these scenarios, and I think we're ready to go. Christine, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion among all the players, and I'm really grateful to the lead that the DA's office has taken in this. I think, what I can probably speak to the most is there's another really important group of people here, and that is our poll workers, our election officials, our judges and our inspectors. It's really the judges who are in charge of the polling places. And one of the things that we're trying to convey to them in the training is, look, you're empowered. The Pennsylvania election code doesn't like having police officers in the polling places. They're not supposed to be there, but they can be called in by the judges if there are problems. And the problems could be as severe as the sort of intimidation that DA Krasner was talking about. And it could be a different kind of intimidation. It could be people coming in not wearing masks, in the midst of a COVID outbreak, which frankly, some of our communities, just like I know some of your neighborhoods in Philadelphia, have been very hard hit. And somebody who wants to intimidate people and upset them could show up and not wear a mask. You know, the judges are being instructed that there's things they can do about that if that person is not voting, whether that person's a poll watcher or something else. They'll be escorted out. They can call the police to do that if the person's not choosing to leave. If voters come in without a mask in Delaware County, we are still going to let them vote. But the judges have a lot of ability to move them around, and voters who don't want to wait their turn, they too may find themselves with somebody being called, a law enforcement person, to recommend that they follow the direction of the judge. So we're doing what we can to educate our judges, and you know, they really ought to be there to be allies of the voters. If they're not, if somebody in Delaware County certainly encounters a judge who is not following the rules, who's not enforcing the rules, we want to know about it. And there will be a number, and probably Jack Stollsteimer can share that with you.
We will. And Christine, if you want to just for a minute too, I mean, one of the ways we can nip these problems in the bud is that we have Delaware County put together 35 different drop-off locations. So as we are speaking right now, people are safely voting throughout Delaware County.
Yeah, I mean, this really goes down to are people interested and willing to vote by mail, because that helps in a lot of different ways. First of all, it certainly helps if our numbers continue to climb. Anything we can do to reduce the density on election day from a COVID management perspective is a good thing. And second of all, it makes it really hard. Delaware County actually has, if you count the drop boxes that are manned at our voter services centers, we're going to have 44 drop boxes that'll all be up and running through election day. I think 3 of them will be manned. The other 41 are video surveillance, but they're literally in 41 of the 60 of the 49 municipalities in Delaware County. And you can go to any Delaware County resident can drop there. Now they can't drop at the ones in Philadelphia, and I know you have a lot too, but our people can't drop there. They can't drop in the Montgomery County boxes, but they can drop in all of these locations. And so if people do want to vote by mail, there's still time, and it can again help on the COVID front. And if you're worried about what you're going to see on election day, this is a way to just turn down the temperature, because there's going to be fewer people at the polls. And I would just say, and I'm sure Commissioner Sabir can get into it as well with what the options are in Philadelphia, but you could apply online. I think if people apply online, if you're going to apply online, I'd encourage you to do it as soon as possible. We'll get our stuff in the mail. I'm hopeful that stuff will get then delivered to people by election day, and they will have the opportunity to go to any of these drop boxes up through election day until 8 p.m. The other option is to go to one of our voter service centers, and we don't have 17, but we've got 3, and they will be open. They'll be open tomorrow. They'll be open on Monday. They'll be open till 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And the locations and the hours, to the extent they're not all the same, are on our website and at delcopa.gov/vote. So please take advantage of that. It's great. You can actually go get your ballot and vote it on the same day and just leave it right there and know you've turned it in. It's a great thing.
One of those locations, Rabiul, is in Upper Darby, which, as you know, is the 6th largest municipality in Pennsylvania. So these are located in all throughout Delaware County strategically. Great. It's a great way of voting early. And as Christine said, if you're at all worried about being intimidated on election day, vote early.
Thank you so much. There may be more to say on this, but I know that DA Krasner is leaving us in 5 minutes. So I want to slip one more question in here, which is, there's the concerns we've just been talking about, but there's also concerns around actually all of the votes being counted and really where our democracy is at. And so we were hoping to hear from each of you about what, you all have different leverage points and different forms of power in this, but what are you committing to do to make sure that every single vote is counted after Election Day. And let's start with DA Krasner.
Thank you for that. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm committing to vote. And I know that sounds funny, but you cannot have your vote counted if you do not vote. So let me tell you what happened when I voted about a week ago. I lined up at City Hall in Philly, which is one of our early locations. It's a busy location. SEPTA is everywhere, so you have all kinds of people going. The location was about to open 11:30. There was a line of 300 people. I was number 300 in that line. I got from the back of that line to having my vote submitted in 21 minutes. It was smooth as could be. It was seamless. People in that line were enthusiastic. They were happy to be there. It didn't even matter who they were there to vote for, right? Don't think of it as being some kind of scary, terrible thing. It is a wonderful thing. Just go do it. You'll be so delighted to see that big crowd out there, all those people who want their vote counted and they're voting so early. And there's my cat again. So, you know, that's number one. Number two, this is not over. Phase one is to get us through Election Day. Phase two, of course, is what we know is coming. What we know is coming is that not all the votes will be counted by 9 o'clock on Election Day. You're probably going to have 2 or 3 days when, because of the pandemic, because there are so many paper ballots and such, they're going to be counted. There are going to be some results that look weird, and there is going to be an effort, we know this, by extremists in the United States, but also there is going to be an effort, if the FBI is correct, a foreign effort to make people believe that there's not an accurate count. We fully expect that there is going to be an accurate count. And we in the police department in Philadelphia are going to do whatever is necessary to make sure that there is no one interrupting the vote or the counting of the vote afterwards. All right. But we all need to do this together. I do not care what side you are on. We all need to hold hands in this respect. We all need to be together through Election Day, and we all need to be together after Election Day. And remember that we know what's coming. What is coming is going to be all of this publicity, all this noise, all this nonsense about how the vote cannot be accurately counted. It is being accurately counted, and it will be.
Thank you. Let me.
I concur with that statement as well. There was over $5 million of equipment that's purchased. We purchased new we purchased new sorters, new extraction machines, scanners, printers. We have the top of the line equipment. We also acquired an additional 125,000 square feet at the Pennsylvania Convention Center to assure that the canvas will be running smooth as possible. And also as well, as when we get, I just want to manage a little bit of expectations as well. If we get 350, 400,000 or so people to apply to vote in person, those results will be on our website available election night. And then as the canvas goes on, as we do our count, you'll start to see those numbers incrementally, go up. It's not like you have to wait 3 days to get any type of results. So then, we can declare a winner on Wednesday. So again, a lot of that fear that people try to instill in people, this election may be a blowout. But you'll start seeing as the counties are reporting, those numbers will start coming in, real time. Again, across the state, I definitely trust that there's a level of transparency, a high level of transparency, with the process. The public will be able to see the process. And again, like I say, as those numbers start coming in, we might be able to declare a winner on Wednesday. That's a possibility. And again, I just want to, manage people expectations, because some people assume that when they hear things like, oh, you're not going to have the total tally for 3 days, they think you're not going to be able to get any results whatsoever for 3 days. There's going to be confusion. So again, that election night, when the machines receive those numbers, we'll have that approximated, 350, 400,000 or so votes off the machine that night. And then, moving forward, we're going to have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week canvas. We're not stopping. I know Montgomery County is not stopping. And I don't want to speak for DelCo, But a lot of the other counties, they're going 24 hours a day to get the results done for everyone.
Well, Delaware County is committed to going 24/7 too. And our expectation is that by the very, very early hours, 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, of November 4th, so the day after, we should have up on our website not just all of the results of the in-person voting that happens, because all those scanners that I was talking about earlier, they actually tabulate the votes cast right there. And so we get the hard drives back at our operations office, our new operations office in Chester, which, again, we needed a lot more square footage to be able to do this. Because like Philadelphia, we've got the big sorter now, and we've got the extractor machines and the envelope opener.
Tell me about it. Oh man.
Yeah, fortunately, I didn't need quite as much as you did, but yeah, we actually we had to take the back building off the old Delaware County power plant to get our new sorter in there. But it's been, they should have by that, early in the day on Wednesday, everything, all the in-person votes and everything that was received up through Monday, November 2nd counted. So it will really just be then the votes coming in on election, the mail-in votes coming in on election day that are going to be counted after that. And I just want to also remind people who aren't as in the weeds as some of us on this election process, the vote totals that people see on election night or the next day when they get up, they're never official. They've always been unofficial, and they're never complete, because what you're not seeing in those votes, I mean, it's not just the extra votes that, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has said will be able to count as long as they're received, through the mail by Friday, which should give people a little extra comfort if they're not close to a drop box, but they're going to drop their they're going to, on that Monday right before the election or whatever, they're going to drop their mail in, their ballot in the mail. As long as we get it by Friday, we can still count it. But in addition to that, there's what's called the UOCAVA ballots, which are the overseas and active US military ballots. They get a whole other week by statute to come in. So, it's not going to be until, the Tuesday after the election before we know we've got all of those. And then there are the provisional ballots. I don't know what Philadelphia saw in the primary. Delaware County was overwhelmed with provisional ballots because we were so late in the primary and getting our ballots out. That is not going to be a problem this time, but I do expect that there will be people who did not get their ballots, or they wind up at the wrong polling place, or anything that can happen. Everybody who's legally registered to vote in Delaware County for the races that they were appropriately eligible to vote for. So if they're the wrong precinct, maybe they won't be able to, their vote for the House race won't count, but all of those votes are going to be reviewed. All of those provisional ballots have to be reviewed, and the ones that can be counted will be counted. And that's going to take us another 10 or 15 days, just like it always does. So the final results are not final until 20 days after the election, when everybody has to certify their results. So I just want people to understand, we're an instant gratification kind of a society these days, but the elections, they take time, and they've always taken time. And, this might be a blowout. If it's a blowout, then we're going to generally know who won Pennsylvania. If it's not a blowout, if it's a really close race, then we may not know for 15 days, because all of those votes that I talked about have to be counted.
Thank you all. I think I'm going to pass it to Ahmet for the next question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you. This is Ahmet with CAIR-Philadelphia. So I know Commissioner Sabir has limited time as well, so I'll pass one more question to Commissioner Sabir, and maybe Commissioner Christine, Councilwoman Christine, you can also shed light on the Delaware side of things. There's some confusion as to what the early voting sites will be functioning after the 27th until November 3rd. So we wanted to ask you to clarify that. Will people still be able to go and drop their ballots if they received one? Will there be still staff to answer questions, concerns of that sort? So that's one specific question that we wanted to ask you. And then second, and I think, you know, the Jack, you know, can come in here as well.
Mark,
Do you want to go?
can I
Yeah,
answer
please
that
go
one?
ahead. Yeah,
'Cause,
please.
you know, sometimes that stuff get kind of, I just want to be clear on that one, right? Okay. So on October the 27th, right? That's the deadline for you to apply at 5 p.m. That's the deadline for you to apply for your vote by mail ballot. Although I don't recommend waiting that long, but again, by law, you still have that right. October 27th by 5 p.m. you can apply for your vote by mail ballot. Now, our satellite locations will be open past Election Day. So all the way up to Election Day, we're going to be open. So, like, just to give you an overview, when we first opened up the sites, you were able to apply for your voter registration. You could apply for your ballot. You could do it all in one swoop. But now the voter registration has passed, so you can't walk into the locations and request and then do your voter registration. After the 27th, you will not be able to walk in and then apply for a ballot if you have not already applied. And if you have already applied and you're requesting a replacement ballot after the 27th, that's no problem. So again, if you want to come in there and request a replacement ballot, that's no problem. You use our satellite centers.
Yeah, Delaware County is doing the same thing. Our offices are going to remain open for their posted hours after the 27th, and they will be available to accept the return of ballots. We are probably going to discourage people from applying, and they might be a little bit thinly staffed that Wednesday and Thursday, because we will probably shift some people over to getting out ballots that came in, you know, that Monday and Tuesday, just because we want to get them in the mail as quickly as we can. So we will probably have thinner staffing. People will be available to answer questions. There will be people there manning the drop boxes. They might suggest that people wait another day or two to see if they get their ballots. But we will, you know, if somebody really needs to get a replacement ballot, or it's somebody who applied quite a while ago and hasn't gotten one, I think there'll still be some capacity to do that. And then definitely that Saturday and the Monday and Tuesday, right on through Election Day, they will be there to print replacement ballots. I think the plan is to actually stop printing replacement ballots. I think we're going to stop printing replacement ballots at 7 o'clock on Election Day. The reason being that these voter services offices are not polling places. At polling places, the rule is if you are in line at 8 o'clock, you get to vote. And while I don't want people who could get a replacement ballot to have to vote provisionally. If they're in line at 8 o'clock, they must be allowed to vote provisionally. The voter services offices are not polling places. They can no longer accept a ballot once the clock strikes 8. So we're going to just stop printing ballots at 8 o'clock and tell people if they need if they came for a replacement ballot, please get to your polling place, which should be possible from, you know, our voting service centers to pretty much anywhere in the county in an hour. Please go back and stand in line, because that way you will be able to vote provisionally, and you're not going to be able to get a replacement. You're probably not going to be able to get a replacement ballot in time to cash it, to drop it otherwise.
Thank you to both of you. I think your comments, you know, signal that everyone needs to have a plan today, right now. And that's what we are giving our messages in our phone calls and texts to people. Now, a follow-up question very quickly about going back to the voter intimidation and voter suppression question. Earlier today in our planning call, Rabiul recounted an experience that he had where he goes to the polling station on the election day and tells his name, and this is not his first time voting, so he doesn't need an ID. And the poll worker was like, I can't understand you, why don't you show me your ID? right? In some ways, that can be interpreted as an innocent ask, but in other ways, it can also be a form of voter intimidation. So I was wondering if you have trained your staff around these kind of multiple different scenarios, especially people of color, African Americans, immigrants might face on the day of election. And I'm sure that there's some coordination going on with the DA's office, the AJAC, I mean, about these issues, given that we are hearing from across the country, people, asking for, armed groups to come and to be hired, or things like that. We had an issue in Minnesota, our chapter dealt with. So let me ask that question around, different kinds of voter intimidation and suppression that you are particularly paying attention to, and specific messaging on that.
When we talk about voter suppression, and we talk about like voter disenfranchisement, there are heavy terms, right? And again, some of the things you like you said, it can be harmless, so sometimes we might accuse someone of that, sometimes it is just a harmless mistake, right? Or not having an election board being trained as possible. I mean, trained as best as possible, right? So a well-trained and well-staffed election board is actually the best defense to voter disenfranchisement, right? So again, we added in our county, we added a virtual training in addition to the in-person. So they can, constantly, rewind the tapes. We give them a test, an assessment test, where they constantly, can view, do the training constantly over and over again, do the training. And also with our election boards, they can bring in like an interpreter as well, like an order. So if there's language barrier to access, they can they can request an interpreter from our office, and we could bring in an interpreter in, from those language aspects. And also, we are working hand in hand with the ACLU, District Attorney's Office, clergy. We have a whole assortment of individuals that will be trained, to make sure that everyone's vote safe. It's a whole routine, and we're going to have a big press conference. Unfortunately, I can't get into the details of it because people that may want to do some harm, we don't want to give those details up, but it's going to be an unprecedented sort of response that we're going to have for people who actually added rovers as well to assist with the PPE, to assist with, keeping lines and social distancing. So there will be an unprecedented presence on the streets, so that our voters can feel safe, and we feel that it's going to be appropriate. But again, the time, leading up, again, we have to let our family and friends know what resources that they can take, in regards with the provisional ballots. Those are things that are very important that we need to explain to our family and friends, that you always can request a provisional ballot. Because we did have one instance where a young lady had came to vote. She came to her wrong polling location. So it was maybe about 7:55 when she came in. And it was the wrong location. The judge of election, they looked at the information. They, told the young lady, here's your polling location. And, here's what's at. You're in the wrong spot. Now it's 7:55. All right. So she didn't make it to her polling location, but she still could have voted provisionally there. Right. So again, the training needs to go, ongoing training, right? These nonprofit groups, hopefully they would love to work with us as well. That's something we always want to look at as well, as far as poll worker training, election board training. Keep that conversation going all year long. Keep the training going all year long. Again, voting right now is quote unquote sexy right now, right? Everybody wants to talk about voting. But again, I'm saying we still have an election every 6 months, right? We're planning on, we're doing some key things right now, planning for our next election. So again, hopefully if we keep the conversation going, we can keep these Zooms going, right? To look at these identifying issues that are happening. And it's an ongoing thing. It's a continuum. We have to keep working together in order, like I say, to provide appropriate education to our election board workers so they can be well-trained, well-staffed, and then they're going to open up access to more voters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I started my public life, if you can call it that, as a clerk, you know, working the polls and then as a judge of elections. And I wound up as a liaison for the election board because I'm a local committee leader and have been staffing polling places for a really long time. And I just felt very strongly that there was a lot we needed to modernize in Delaware County. Stepping in, not quite realizing what we were going to be faced with, not just with brand new machines that we were deploying for the first time and Act 77 and, you know, no excuse mail-in voting for the first time, but a pandemic, which really, I think, has driven mail-in voting. But the problems that you're just talking about of sort of microaggressions and, you know, very subtle but clearly discriminatory and intimidating behavior when the only people you're asking for ID are people of color. I mean, that's a problem. And it has been a problem in Delaware County. You know, one thing we're trying to train people is don't ask them for their ID, ask them to spell their name. You know, can you spell it for me or write it down if I can't understand you? And then I can go look for you in the book, because we do have to get to their name in the book so that they can sign. But there's a lot of different things you can do besides insisting that somebody produce something that they shouldn't have to produce to vote. And you know, a lot of times it's just the easiest thing to do. And I don't know that anybody's really considering the impact it's having on every person that they're asking to vote. So part of the training is ask them to spell it, ask them to write it down for you so that you can look it up. So that's certainly, I absolutely agree with Commissioner Sabir. This is absolutely a question of training. We have, for the first time, produced systematic training materials in Delaware County, where we're trying to produce them to a standard, both for the machines and for the law that is comprehensive. And they're going to be available in 3 ways for our poll workers. They're online. And in fact, anybody who wants to know how Delaware County poll workers are trained can go onto our website. It's not password protected. You can look at all of it. So if you want to know what the rules are, or you've got poll watchers who want to know how our people are being trained, go look on the website. They are being, they're actually getting those same materials on a tablet, which will be at the website. Be at the polling sites. Each precinct will have a tablet with all the training materials on it. So if somebody doesn't remember, like, what am I supposed to do with a provisional ballot? And believe me, we're going to have a lot of new poll workers in this election, because like the primary, you know, a lot of people are filling in for us because our really stalwart, constant poll workers who've been doing it for 25 or 30 years are a little leery of working with the COVID numbers where they are. And so we're gonna have a lot of new people, even if they went, you know, did the training online, they may not remember what they saw. So they're gonna have this, they can actually pull up, okay, this is how you do a provisional ballot. And they can show it to the voter, and the judge and the voter can do the provisional ballot together. The other thing that we're doing is a conference call. Actually, we're doing 3 conference calls over the weekend before. And, you know, it's conversations like these that are going to help us surface points that we need to emphasize for all of our poll workers, whether they're in the training or not. We're going to come back and we're going to hit on things that they need to know and remind them of the really important things, so that it's, you know, in the front of their mind. There's also some, you know, the hands-on training that we're doing and the in-person training that we're doing because of the COVID restrictions is pretty much limited to the machines. But these conference calls that we've scheduled the weekend before are for people to call in and participate, and they'll have a chance to queue up and ask questions, and we're going to be bringing to them experiences and issues that have been brought to us. So I certainly would encourage you to ask people who are watching tonight, if there are things that have gone on in their polling places that have been problematic, let us know about it. Because as I said, I'm not going to assume that people are necessarily acting from bad motives, but you got to tell them what the rules are so that they know what the rules are. And I think most people, once they know, will try to work with that. And if they won't, then you can call DA Stollsteimer.
Yeah, thank you. Just to close the loop on that, what actually happened was there was a family member, my sister, a third-year pharmacy student, standing in front of me. We both went together to vote. The lady at the polling place could not understand her name. Then she requested ID. Then I said, why are you asking for it? And she said, okay, I can't understand what she's saying. I said, okay, provide her a piece of paper. She can write it down for you. Then she said, no, I still need to say it now. That's when I picked up the phone and called Judge Nusrat and Mayor Barbara, as well as Mike. Actually, the person who helped last year is now a year with Jack. I think it was Tanner who showed up, who helped. So yeah, I encourage people to call these hotlines. With that, I do have a question for Jack, then I'll bring in Asif to say a few words. So Jack, DL Larry kind of touched on it. Do you have any concern about electronic security in this election, and what can we do to avoid it? We're talking about like foreign intervention, right? How is there anything that you guys talking about? Anything with combating potential cyber attack, etc.?
Yeah, I don't think we have anything to worry about with the machines. The machines are not connected, to my knowledge, to the internet. There's no way to access them. Votes can't be changed on the machine. In fact, and Christine can talk about this, but the new machines we have in Delaware County actually, I think, give you a receipt for your vote.
No, they don't. They don't. But what they do is at the end of the night, they print out. They do print out the tabulation. The fact is, your ballot is. Two things come back from the polling, every precinct location. The hard drives from the scanners that are there that have actually captured all the information, the scans, and tabulated the votes. And the votes themselves, the ballots all come back and they're sealed. And so if there is a problem with any of the drives, if there's been any suggestion that somebody was playing around with the numbers, or if even just a drive just becomes corrupted, because sometimes they will, you can go back and rescan all those ballots. So that's the paper trail. And we're really lucky that we've got that. Just the other thing too, Delaware County's access to the state SURE system, which is their secure voter registration system, which was not really built for mail-in voting, as I'm sure the commissioner knows. But it's entirely separate from the Delaware County network. So anybody who was trying to go fishing or get into part of the Delaware County, business operations network, they would not be able to get into the voting system or anything that tabulates the votes. They're all completely isolated.
Thank you.
Which is why all the foreign interference that you hear about is really attempts to influence the voters, right? They're spreading disinformation through social media to people who they think will be influenced by that. It happened in the 2016 elections. It happens in European elections a lot now. There are certain countries who think it's in their interest to disrupt the unity of this country, Russia being first among those countries. And so I think you're seeing a lot of efforts by the feds to try to stop that and put that information out there. So I would just, suggest to people that, again, your vote on election day is really going to be safe. And if you want to vote ahead of election day to make it easier for everybody in the counting process, that's great. But look for trusted sources when you try to get information. I mean, just use our all own common sense. Talk to people you know who actually know something about a subject. The internet is such an amazing. I have 2 teenage children who tell me all the time that they just learned something on YouTube, and if I disagree with them, well, then YouTube, trumps whatever I have to say. And I think that we need to teach people, what is a fact and what's not a fact, and that's something we're going to have to do as a society once this election is passed, even more so. But just the other thing, if I just a moment of your time, the last discussion about Election Day. I mean, one of the things I think people have to realize is this is a very long, stressful day for the people who work at the polls. In Delaware County Judge of Elections are elected officials, so they're local elected people in most cases. And they have a tremendous job to do, and they get tired and they get irritated and they get aggravated, and they may not deal with people as customer friendly as we would like them, and we can't control that. But everybody just needs to, I think, especially in this election, with all the stresses that are going on in our country, we all need to take a breath, just do it, be well to each other, treat each other like the good Americans we are, and let's just get through this together.
Thanks, Jack. With that, I'm going to bring Dr. Asif. He's the Engage PA chair, as well as surgeon and professor at Rothman at Jefferson. So Asif, thanks for joining. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives we have taken from the Muslim community, particularly about the Million Muslim Votes?
Of course, Rabiul. So first of all, I just want to say good evening and salam to everyone. This is a really important discussion. Thank you for our elected officials who are here on the discussion today and taking the time to inform everyone and discuss relatively sensitive topics, but obviously very timely issues that are front and center. And I really appreciate the depth of the conversation and the recognition of the challenges before us coming ongoing, and obviously will culminate on Election Day. And being Pennsylvania will probably go on for some time after from the sound of it. First, I just want to thank those elected officials, and I also want to thank this collaborative effort. Thank the CAIR team, the POWER team, and Engage, obviously. And Rabiul, thanks for leading us in this discussion as representative of Engage for Delaware County. I'm just going to make a small plug for what we're doing. Engage is a grassroots American Muslim political organization trying to engage the American Muslim community in the political process. And we are making good, steady progress, and discussions like these, forums like these, are important for us to drive that. The Muslim American community is growing in America. It's becoming more and more informed, more and more engaged, and is poised to be a powerful voting bloc within the Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania as a Commonwealth, and the U.S. as a country. So I think it's really important. One of the efforts that we're doing, just to share with everyone, is what we refer to as a Million Muslim Vote campaign, where we're looking to deliver a million American Muslims to vote in this upcoming election, which would be unprecedented. We are well on our way of doing that. And all of you are part of this process by helping to engage your respective communities, whether Muslim or not. It doesn't ultimately matter. That what matters most is engaging all of the different community members, particularly those that have often been disenfranchised or marginalized in this process, and to have a voice. So I'm really proud to see everyone getting together to do this work. And I'm particularly proud and happy to see our elected officials taking this so seriously, because it is a very serious issue and some challenging days ahead. And I just want to echo what the DA said, that it's going to be a long day. There's going to be some very frustrated people. I think we all have to be patient and be supportive, and view this as a group community effort as we go forward. But that's all I'll say. I want to just thank everyone for their time this evening. It's a great discussion, important discussion to have. And I really, lastly, will say that I really appreciate the collaborative spirit with which all of these nonprofit organizations, as well as our elected officials, are working together to drive the best turnout for this upcoming election for us. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Asif.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
I think we are getting close to wrapping up. Thank you again, Dr. Asif, for that. Lena, I think we have a question around the formerly incarcerated that we wanted to ask. It's a subject that is not oftentimes, highlighted in this process. Do you want to go with it and then slowly close us out?
Sure. So we know there's some misconceptions out there about folks who are currently or formerly incarcerated and if they're allowed to vote or not, and we want to make sure everyone's really clear on that. So could maybe just one person could respond and let us know, what rules are around folks who are either currently or formerly incarcerated and voting.
Omar, do you want to take that?
Sure. If you have been convicted of a felony while you're in your incarceration, then you can't vote, right? But if you have been released from your incarceration, even if you have been convicted of a felony, you are eligible to vote. And even if you are in county jail and you have not been convicted of a felony, you are eligible to vote. Now, there's a lot of social media stuff. There's a lot of misinformation going around. Again, that's intentional, right? We have these fake Facebook profiles. They might share different rules from different states and say, hey, look, felons can't vote. Look what's happening here, but again, in Pennsylvania, we have some of the most liberal voting rights in regards to formerly incarcerated individuals. And it was done by the courts. There was a lot of lobbying. So again, just to keep it real clear, once you leave your incarceration, you are eligible to vote. If you have been convicted of a felony while you're incarcerated, you can't vote. But if you have been convicted for anything other than a felony, even while you're incarcerated, you can still vote and you still can get registered to vote.
One thing that I know there's a group who's planning on actively doing this in Delaware County. There is an ability, even though the right to request a no excuse mail-in ballot or an absentee ballot is over on the 27th. There is the ability to get an emergency ballot. And one of the reasons you can get an emergency ballot is because you're in the hospital. You can actually get an emergency ballot because of last minute travel for work or something, if you can document that. And you can get a last minute ballot if you suddenly find yourself in jail because you got picked up on a warrant or a DUI and you can't make bail, anything. Even the felony that you're then sitting in a county jail, but you have not been convicted, you can get an emergency ballot if you would otherwise have been planning to vote in person. And I know there's a team that's actively planning on trying to make that service available to prisoners. And I believe they've been in touch with either the president judge or the MDJ who's been serving out there at George W. Hill in Philadelphia and in Delaware County. But I imagine there are probably some similar efforts underway in Philadelphia.
And if I could just add to, what you just said, again, groups like Engage, the civil rights organizations, that's, we talk about voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement. We really, I know that's definitely one of my priorities, that again, even after this election, that this is an ongoing, drive to facilitate voting rights, for prisoners. And again, it's right now, it's just based off who has the enthusiasm really to do it, right? So again, I'm definitely going to need some help to do that. And again, if we want to make it a statewide thing, let's make it a statewide thing. But definitely, there's so many prisoners, like I said, we engage them more. That would definitely, give a voice to a group that didn't believe that they had a voice.
Thank you, Omar. So there is a question, as mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we were collecting questions. There's a question from Brother Kamal, who is the former president of Abu Dhabi Islamic Center. So his question is, where can he vote tomorrow in Delaware County?
He's got 3 different options. He can go to the Human Services Building at 20 South 69th Street on the 4th floor. That opens the earliest. They close at 2, but last weekend they stayed open till 5 because the staff will stay to make sure anybody who's in line gets to vote. Another option is Chester City Hall. That is so far been it's been steady, but it's been our least crowded. So, and that's open from 10 to 2. And again, they'll stay open if there's people in line who want to vote. And the third option is Government Center, where the Election Bureau was located. That is now our Voter Services Office. The county's major election operations have also moved to Chester, to the Wharf Building, which is down on the riverfront. But it is not really a retail type of a building that people can walk in and out of easily. So all of them will be open. I think, and again, I think Upper Darby may be opening. I'm not going to say. I'm going to suggest you check the website, but they are all open tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he lives in Newtown Square somewhere. So yeah, I'm gonna help him Google it. So thank you. I think we are a little bit over the time, but nevertheless, before we close out, I would like to request all of you to say a closing remark, starting with Jack.
Just thank you very much for doing this. I think this is just such a wonderful dialogue to have. And I think Omar said it best. This is not a dialogue. This is not one done, right? We need to do this all the time. We need to get every community who wants to be counted to stand up and vote every election. Governor Rendell said that we have to, and this is kind of partisan, but he said, we have to stop having people think that you only have to vote twice every 4 years. Not just for president, not just for governor, but we actually have to get people to come out and vote for state and local elections. So we've got to just keep doing it. I'm a first-generation American myself, so I have great hope that everybody who, like the people on this call tonight, who represent people who are Black and brown and have felt like they have been underserved and underappreciated in this country for too long, that they take the vote seriously, because that is the only way you make change in this world. I think Christine will back me up. I know Omar, I think, will as well, that the only thing that really matters in electoral politics is showing up. And if your community shows up, you have a seat at the table. So please show up this election, show up every election, and thank you so much for getting this message out.
Thank you very much, Jack. You're right. If you're not on the table, you're never going to be on the menu. Councilwoman Christine.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Any opportunity to help inform voters is well worth the time, because the system, we face all kinds of challenges, and there have been particularly unique challenges this year because highly placed government officials have taken it upon themselves to undermine the credibility of this process. And I've been involved in it in enough different capacities over the last 25 years that I know there's no such thing as an absolutely perfect election. Mistakes are always made, but they are made in good faith by people who are really trying their very best most of the time to capture the votes and do the very best work that they can. And I know when I was elected, I went into our election department thinking, and I'm not meaning this to be partisan, but just to say that, we were Democrats and that there was a transition for the first time in 150 years of power. And we went in and I was all sure in my mind and in my heart that, oh my gosh, these were the people who were putting their thumbs on the scale all those years. And you know what? They're not. They're people really trying to do their very best to run good elections. And I have come to have the utmost respect for our election staff who were there when I got there. And I think it's a real disservice that people would try to undermine the credibility of this process where people are doing the very best that they can. So I urge everyone to be vigilant. I urge people to demand transparency, but I urge people to go out and vote, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make the difference. And if you have questions, call on your elected officials. It's what we're there for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Christine. But Omar.
Again, policymakers will never know what your priorities are unless you participate in the voting in the election process. They pay attention to votes. They don't look at people, they look at numbers. And your ballot behavior will dictate policy decisions. So again, we ask you to vote for resources and accountability from elected officials. I mean, those are the two reasons why I think you should vote. The more you vote, the more you get. It's been proven, you know, from anything that you can look at, whether it's school funding, whether it's who gets the trash picked up first. I mean, you know, there's limited resources, public dollars. And again, the people that vote are getting taken care of first. I mean, it's what it is. Again, someone said earlier, if you're not at the table and you're on your menu, it's very simple that you want to, that's part of citizenship. And that's what you should do. Again, any more questions, you can go to our website, philadelphiavotes.com. In Philadelphia County, if you have any questions, and trusted messengers. Okay, don't listen to your plumber, you know, your hairstylist about your voting needs. You have qualified people. Go to these websites, go to the hotlines, and get the appropriate information that you need. And again, I mean, I have an uncle and his wife. They was born in Philadelphia. They live in DelCo. They're calling me up, asking me questions about DelCo. I'm like, auntie, uncle, I don't live in DelCo. I know, but you're the commissioner. You can get it done. I said, no. I reached out to Ashley Lunkenheimer, commissioner, and she sent me back over the hotline number. They got the hotline information, and everything was taken care of. My uncle and my aunt were so happy and excited. So again, trusted messengers, right? Trusted messengers that can answer the appropriate information. Because again, although I'm a commissioner of Philadelphia County, I don't know all the rules out in Delaware County. So again, we have to steer our people to get the appropriate information. And again, all of the county websites, the Secretary of State, OSBA.com, ACLU, I mean, these are trusted websites that we have to steer people to eliminate the confusion. The confusion comes from when someone says, I think this, I think that. I was just on a phone call, literally last night till about almost 10 o'clock. And these groups are just going back with this misinformation. And I get on a phone call and they still arguing. And the lady on the call said, wait a minute, I have the commissioner right here, be quiet. So again, please, I know a lot of emotions are high, steer them to the appropriate information. Again, the DA's office, you know, voter protection, 866 Our Votes, that's another number. For attorneys, it's a national organization. Again, there's more than enough people that have the appropriate information. So please, trusted messengers, trusted messaging for your voting needs.
Thank you, Omar. Thanks for lending the hand. We are running short of stuff here in DelCo anyway, so thanks for that. I'm gonna go to my partner, Lena, to say closing remark.
Thanks, Rabiul. Thanks everyone for being here and everyone who's listening. I want to say that clearly, if you are listening to this at 8:45 on a Friday night, you really care about voting and you care about getting the right information. And it is our responsibility and your responsibility to make sure that the rest of your people know this stuff too, right? This is a confusing election. We've never voted in a global pandemic before, at least not in recent memory. And our people need us, our friends, our family, our neighbors need us to check in with them. And we know that people listen to the people they already have relationship with. I don't know about y'all, but I get about 60 texts from people I don't know a day about the election, and I'm getting pretty tired of it, even though I'm glad folks are doing it. But if people that I know and trust reach out to me and check in about if I have my voting plan, if I need a ride to the polls, if I'm all good, I listen, right? And so at Power, that's a big piece of what we're doing. We're really encouraging folks to reach out to the people that you already have relationship with. I'm gonna put this in the chat. We have an app that makes it really easy to do that and to be getting people the right information, right? So that we're not spreading misinformation, but we're giving people the links to where they really should be listening to. So I'm gonna send that in the chat now. You can sign up for that app. It's really relatively easy to use. And also I sent the link to the Power calendar because there's lots of work to do in this time, and we're the folks who who are going to do it. So thank you all for being with us and for the work you're already doing and the work that's ahead of us.
Thank you, Lena. Brother Ahmet, closing sentence from you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you to everyone who joined here on Facebook. We as community organizations are doing our end of calling, texting thousands of people, people that we know. You are doing your part of informing people. And this process, I think, builds accountability for all of us. We hold our politicians, our elected officials accountable. Our communities hold us accountable. And hopefully we make this process as inclusive as possible for everyone involved. To everyone who is doing this work from any conviction, we thank you all. And definitely we emphasize that, it's the time to protect this vote and to value it, including for people who are not able to vote and who live here. That includes myself. So that's a communal obligation on us as we approach it. So thank you to all of you for giving your Friday evening to us. Rabiul, thank you again for bringing us together. So yeah, back to you, Rabiul.
Thank you, Brother Ahmet, and I appreciate everyone's valuable time and participating. I think it was a great opportunity to learn about some of the challenges or issues our nation is facing at the moment, right? And like Omar said, the stress are high. Just take it easy. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night.